What's good, good people? Vets, let's talk, man. I want to share a quick video with you guys. U.S. soldier suddenly runs into North Korea. Hey, man, before we get started, I'd like to thank you guys for your likes, shares, and your comments. You already know what I say. HBO special. Help a brother out. Hey, stay tuned for the quote at the end. Maybe for you, might be helpful for what's going on in your life right now. But it might be for somebody that you know, might not be for you. But please stay tuned for the comments. I mean, for the quote at the end. Hey man, Travis King, man. Let me share this video with you guys real quick. I really want to know. I really would like to know what you guys think about what took place.
More about the American soldier now detained in North Korea. A U.S. defense official says that the soldier was facing disciplinary action by the U.S. military before he crossed the demarcation line into North Korea.
Yeah, the official says he was about to be sent back to the United States. We're told he was not in uniform at the time and was on some kind of, a tour.
CNN's Mark Stewart, Natasha Bertrand, and Kylie Atwood are joining us now. Natasha, I want to begin with you. So we've learned that this soldier was assigned to the U.S. Forces Korea. What else do we know about him and this discipline that he was facing?
Well, not a lot, Sarah. Essentially, what we're learning at this point is that he was a junior enlisted soldier and he was assigned to U.S. Forces Korea, and he was taking a tour of the joint security area in the DMZ, at which point he appears to have crossed over that demarcation line into North Korea voluntarily. And I'll just read you a statement that we got from U.S. Forces Korea, which says that a U.S. service member on a JSA Joint Security Area orientation tour willfully and without authorization crossed the military demarcation line into the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Now, the U.S. military does at this point believe that he is still in North Korean custody. And interestingly, the military says that they are in touch with their Korean People's Army, that's the North Korean military, counterparts to try to resolve this issue. But what we are learning is that this soldier was apparently facing disciplinary action by the U.S. military, and he was actually set to be sent back to the United States before he actually went on this tour and ended up crossing that demarcation line again, apparently voluntarily and willfully. So Pentagon officials across the administration are trying to gather more information on why exactly he crossed that line. But obviously, this new information about the potential disciplinary action he was facing adds a new dimension to all of this, guys.
It definitely adds a new wrinkle, Natasha. Thank you. Mark, what are one question when we were learning about this morning is if he had crossed over accidentally. What are the chances of crossing over accidentally into North Korea there?
Okay, let me stop this. It wasn't an accident. The Joker ran. He was part of a tour group. Well, you know what? Let me finish. Let's finish the video.
Okay, I think a lot of people may be surprised to know that there are public tours that Americans visiting South Korea can actually tour the DMZ and this joint security area. I have done so, and I will tell you, there is no question where these boundaries are located. It is very delineated. These territorial boundaries, that line of demarcation, is very clear. And oftentimes, there are a lot of military personnel often with you when you go on these tours. So there's no question exactly the location of all of this. This is an area that is patrolled or maintained, if you will, by United Nations forces, which in many cases are American soldiers. And then on the other side of this territorial line, you have North Koreans. Natasha Bertrand brought up the point that discussions are now taking place between these forces and North Korea. It is interesting to note that there's actually a phone line that has been established, that was established historically, where United Nations forces could call up and reach out to North Korean forces. It is not clear if that's the channel that's being used here, but that's a historical protocol that has been in place. Finally, again, this is not an area where you can accidentally wander. There are a lot of military personnel who are not armed. And in case someone does decide to venture over, United Nations forces have strict orders not to intervene. There is really nothing that they can do.
And Kylie Atwood, let's go to you at the State Department to sort of tie this all up. Based on Natasha's new reporting that this was a soldier facing discipline, What's the posture of the State Department toward what's happening right now?
Well, listen, given that this is a soldier who was actively serving in the U.S. forces South Korea, which we should note there's about 28,000 soldiers who serve in those forces based in South Korea, the State Department is really pointing to the Pentagon right now and allowing them to take the lead in terms of sharing with us information about how this incident evolved. But I think it's also important to note that, this soldier on this tour presumably wasn't with, a group of other Americans, a group of other American soldiers. And so therefore, the U.S. is going to be heavily reliant on the UN command in this area, which tries to preserve the stability in the area between North and South Korea. These tours happen to show folks that what there is some sort of stability, even though there's this tension between North Korea and South Korea. It's also important to note that before today, before this incident occurred, there weren't any Americans that we knew of who were detained in North Korea. There was, of course, Otto Warmbier, who was released by the North Koreans in 2017. And then there were 3 other Americans who were detained by North Korea, released in 2018. And then, of course, we saw the Trump administration really engage, with North Korea between President Trump and Kim Jong-un with those series of summits that we saw. That has not been the situation during the Biden administration. There hasn't been regular diplomatic contact between the U.S. and the North Koreans right now. So in terms of the contact that's occurring at this moment in time, as Natasha was saying, it is the Pentagon that is taking the lead. And of course, we're working to learn if there are other avenues that the U.S. is also reaching out to North Korea, trying to use potentially, its allies, South Korea, potentially China, and also, of course, U.S. diplomats.
Kylie, when is it clear to you, or are you getting a sense of, if, as the Pentagon's taking the lead right now, if this becomes a State Department problem, or when the State Department starts stepping in to try to assist to get the soldier back?
Yeah, well, the State Department would step in if this becomes a case of an American who is wrongfully detained by North Korea. And we can't make that assessment definitively right now, but based on the information that we have gathered, the fact that the Pentagon is saying that this soldier willfully crossed over this demarcation line, it appears that, it would be well within North Korea's capability to detain someone who has crossed over without getting any authorization to. So that wouldn't, as far as we can tell right now, amount to a situation where it would be an American who is wrongfully detained, who did absolutely nothing wrong to be detained by the North Korean side. But when it comes to these matters, of course, U.S. diplomats are always trying to figure out ways to care for Americans abroad. That is the actual, reason that there are consular officers here at the State Department. But
Okay, wrongfully, huh? Don't cross the gun line, boss. I think it's a rule up there. Hey, man, I got an update on this, on what happened. Not gonna really judge this guy, but I would really like to know. Hey, everything I say is based on my opinion. Everything they say is on opinion as well. So, hey, here's the update.
For the first time, the North Koreans have responded to UN messages about the American soldier who entered their country 2 weeks ago, a possible sign that they may be willing to negotiate his release. They have acknowledged they have 23-year-old Army Private Travis King and said the incident is under investigation. King deliberately entered North Korea instead of returning to the U.S. to face charges from the Army.
So, 23-year-old Travis King. He was accused of punching 2 people. One man several times in the face in the club on September 21st. He supposedly did some time in the brig. Civilian folk, jail. He did some time over there in military prison. I guess he was scheduled to come back to the States. He was at the airport and got away from the MPs. My question is, I left out, he did destroy a Korean police vehicle, one of their public service vehicles. So, my question, like, once he joined this group, this tour group, the tour guide didn't notice an additional individual stepping up. And, they got to be with guard, right? because it's you know, you can't cross the line. So they got to do a head count. So nobody noticed this individual joining this group of people. And nobody asked no questions. Everybody was just so willing to see the other side, just look over. But anyway, I really want to know what was going on in this kid's head as opposed to why he did what he did. He's 23. He probably doesn't know the gravity of what he's done. I'm not going to bash him because there's no telling what he's been through as a child. His mother said he was a good kid. They, you know, I think it was uncle or something like that said they wouldn't believe that he would do something like this. But he's, you know, he's not. You're not around your kid 24/7. So every parent wants to believe that their child is an angel. Every parent wants to believe that their child is an angel. And when things like this happen, they just sit back and say, "Oh, I just don't believe he would." But you really never know what's going on in his head. I'm not to sit back and say if he was abused or anything. He probably came from a good home. But what was taking place with him mentally? Like, what's his actual history? You know, research before judgment will do a lot of justice in this case. Why did he actually cross over? Like, what was his thoughts? Was he going to get into some severe trouble coming back here? Was he going to do some serious jail time? Or was he just getting kicked out? Did he think he was more safe with North Korea than he was with Americans? I don't know. I don't know. That's probably questions that would be asked once he returns. But I would say this happened, 14, 15 days ago. So I want to know why there wasn't that much media done on it. That's a question that I have, because, you know, it was a certain individual go to a country and got arrested for drugs. And, you know, they fought left and right to get this person back to the States. And we're not seeing too much information on this guy. Yeah, granted, military does keep things quiet. But when that individual went over there and got arrested for drugs, that was wide open. But anyway, I want to share a quote with you guys by Epictetus. Freedom and happiness comes from understanding and working with our limits. Begin at once a program of self-mystery. Stick with your purpose. Do not seek external approval. Do not worry about anything outside of your control. The only things you command are your thoughts and actions. We choose our response. Stop aspiring to be anyone other than your own best self, for that does fall within your control. Only you control what you do at the end of the day. Nobody's controlling you. You have that power to sit back and say, no, I won't, or yes, I will. Always keep in the forefront that you can. And whenever somebody says that you can't, don't prove it wrong. Just work by action. Hey, man, who's up next for Formation? Vets, let's talk. Out.